Welcome to episode 13 of Petey's awesome guest panel. My guest at this time is a very close friend of mine of 7 years. She is also a legend in the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. You may know her as Chainsaw from the Heavy Metal. You may know her from Phil from the Housewives. My guest at this time is Sharon Walensky Johnston. Sharon, how are you today?
Lovely, Petey. How are you?
Good, and you? Now, before I get into the Globe related questions, what were you doing prior to Glow?
Prior to Glow, I was on track to be an attorney, and I had a scholarship to USC that got sabotaged. So I ended up waitressing, and I was taking some acting classes and had an agent that had sent was saying that there's an audition. I was playing football at the time in the girls' team, so I asked if I could bring the rest of the team. So the whole team auditioned, and it ended up being myself, my sister Donna, and Emily Dole. She was on the football team too. That got cast for Glow. So Emily Dole, who played myself. I wasn't acting before that. After that, I went to New York and studied acting for years, and then came back to California and studied for a lot longer and stuff like that. But prior to that, no, I hadn't really, I hadn't done any acting at all, really.
I see. Now, with the Glow-related questions, though, I want to ask you, take me through your audition for Glow. What happened?
It wasn't really much of an audition. They were just interviewing people, and they didn't want me. They wanted Donna and Emily, and Donna said, "You should really give my sister a second shot." And so so then we got it, and I didn't know much about it. We didn't get the call until 9 months later. And then when we went in to see it, I saw a video, and I saw April Pond, who plays Royal Hawaiian, and Jeannie Bisson, who plays Hollywood, and they were so scary. They scared me so badly, and I looked at my sister and said, "We're gonna die. We're seriously gonna die. I don't know what the heck. I don't know what we're doing. This is really dumb." And then I was so scared when we went in, and I saw that April was going to train us, and I'm like, "He's going to kill me." And she's the nicest person in the world. I think of that now. I think, oh, terror. But just at the same time, I was working at a restaurant, and also working with me was someone named Steve Borden, and he was one of the bartenders. Prior to me getting the call for Glow, about 6 months before I got the call for Glow, he said this is in 1986, I think, or 85 rather. He said, "Sharon, I just got called to interview for some show they're doing called WWF. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "It's wrestling." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he was a big guy. And he ended up getting hired, and he went by the character name was Sting. And so I remember going to his wedding because his wife, she also worked with us. She was a friend of mine. We also worked at a Gold's Gym together. And I went to the wedding, and there were all these gigantic wrestlers there. It was really funny. Because I've never been into wrestling before. I didn't know anything about wrestling. And so I didn't even know, when we created our characters, I'd never watched wrestling. So I didn't know what a bad guy was or what they're supposed to do. So I'm creating all these things and all this stuff with our characters based on a guess. So I remember thinking, okay, well, for anything, it's like, what's one of the elements that makes somebody a really bad person? And I thought, they're a racist. So the housewives were super racist. And so it was like, you think about the stuff. I think I remember that Heavy Metal, we did a racist thing one time when we were doing Ebony and Sally the Farmer's Daughter, and Ebony was black. God, she was so pretty. And I remember I'd gotten a watermelon, put it in the trunk of my car for a week in the Las Vegas heat. So you know what's going to happen to a watermelon. It's going to get all gushy inside. So that way, when we brought the watermelon out, we looked really racist. And then partway during the match, I broke the watermelon open, and I took all the junk that was inside, and we rubbed it all over our faces. And we had so much makeup on us, Heavy Metal, that it became blackface. So then here we are with blackface on our knees singing Mammy to Ebony. Could not get more racist. I could never run for office because that would just come out everywhere. And all of the things that we said, oh my goodness, horrible things, especially as a housewife. In fact, the Jewish Defense League, I found out years later, called Matt Simber to complain about us. And he said they're the only, Donna and Sharon are the only Jews on the team. So they were kind of surprised about that. I was literally doing caricatures of what I saw from my East Coast family and racist stuff. So I thought that's what made you a bad person. I'm literally guessing the whole time. Donna was 21 and I was only 26. So you're guessing at what 65-year-old racist from the East Coast is going to be like. And that's how it went. You just make it up as you go along, because when you're that age, you can have a frame of reference as to, I didn't anywhere, as to the real world outside and wrestling and what shows off is good and what's bad. I'm guessing the whole time since I never watched it before.
Fair enough. Now, I got to ask you, what was your favorite match as Chainsaw?
I would say probably the Southern Bells, because the Southern Bells got to do lots of fun things. Because we wrote all our matches. The four girls that were together would write their matches. So nothing got done to anyone that wasn't already known it was going to get done. And everybody approved everything. It wasn't about hurting anybody or disrespect. And everything that we did was meant to be done with the most safety in mind. For example, the Southern Bells, what I liked about that was we had the ring of fire that the girls had to jump through, or at least one of them did, Tara did. So we pulled, they came in, the Southern Bells came in these big hoop dresses. And I believe, because Nanuchka, Lori, her mom, both Nanuchka and her mom used to be our costumers. And I believe her mom made the dresses for the Southern Bells, and they had these big hoops at the bottom. So in one of the dresses, we pulled out the hoop, and it had this material all around it that Donna was going to set on fire, like a ring of fire, so they could go through like you would in a circus event, like they were dogs going through. That was it. It was supposed to make them look demeaning, like they were little animals going through like a circus hoop. And that took a lot of planning, because we had to have the fire marshal there. It's going to be an indoor event. You can't just light fires inside. And so the fire marshal was there the whole time, and he was there for the prep of everything. And when we came in, we brought in 2 bottles of what looked like alcohol. One looked like Southern Comfort, and one looked like Jack Daniels. But really, they were just room temperature iced tea. And what we used them for specifically was to pour over the girls' heads before we sent them through the hoops, because all of us had a lot of hairspray on. And I didn't want anybody's head catching on fire when they went through the hoops, their hair catching on fire. And so we poured that all over their heads to make it look like we were degrading them before they went through. But it was really just to protect their heads, make them all wet so nobody's head would catch fire. So we did a lot of prep in that, and it looked like very they've got a lot of cool close-ups of Donna when she's holding the fire, looking really maniacal, holding it, she keeps lighting it. It's a really dramatic looking effect. So I really like that. And I look so scary coming in. Like I look at myself when I'm in the ring, and I look at some of the faces I make, I'm like, oh, it scares me. But as far as the housewives matches, any housewives match would be great, because they were so much fun and easy. I didn't have to worry about anything with my props. Like my chainsaw the first season would always stall, which makes you look really stupid. If you're this big scary chainsaw character, your chainsaw keeps stalling. It's dumb. The second season, I got a bigger saw, but when I would try to start that saw, you have to drop it and pull the choke. And when you drop it to start it, it would come really close to my knee every time. So every time I was thinking, I'm going to saw my knee right off. And so chainsaw wasn't that fun to do because it was either precarious or dangerous. But the housewives were really fun to do because you didn't have to worry about getting hurt. And because I got hurt during training, during rehearsals, I had said, we didn't have a regular wrestling ring. Wrestling rings are very specific and they have bounce and everything like that to help keep people from getting hurt. But we had plywood with carpet foam on it and a canvas mat. And I said one time during rehearsal, somebody's going to get hurt on this because the edge of the plywood sticks out. If somebody goes over the ropes, they can hurt themselves. Well, that ended up being me. I went over during rehearsal training, and the back of my leg where my knee is hit the edge of that plywood, and it tore my ACL in half and tore my meniscus. And if you've ever had a torn ACL, essentially you're ripping the tendon in your knee, ligament in your knee. And I couldn't stop because I didn't get fired. So I'm standing there and I had to keep going. But I turned to Donna and I remember thinking, I will never get injured again. And we will write every one of our matches to do as little wrestling as possible because I'm not getting hurt again. So if you look, most of my wrestling is chainsaw and stuff is pretty much doing stuff to other people with big saws and stuff, and big effects, but not a tremendous amount of wrestling. Then if you look at the housewives and watch how I wrestle in the housewives, I look like a buffalo that rolls around. That's pretty much my wrestling technique. Buffalo rolling around. I'm no better than a buffalo being pushed around. So we kind of look really lame because that's as hard as I was going to try to wrestle, because I was not going to get hurt again. But we still made it work. We built that into the characters. But the characters, when they wanted housewives, they wanted 30-year-old sexy housewives. First of all, I was only 26 and Donna was 21, so I don't. But I said, no, if you want us to do housewives, let us develop it our way. And that's what I came up with, was those two 65-year-old, hideous, racist, rude, didn't like the bad guys or the good guys because everyone was a whore. We were just there to take them out, that kind of thing. So, and they seemed to like the characters. So we developed those characters on our own. And I've not seen it, but I heard that Genji Cohen for Netflix actually replicated the Housewives characters, calls them the beatdown biddies, but actually used those characters in the G.L.O.W series on Netflix. So I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool. Now I have to ask you, because you took part in like in season 3 and 4 of G.L.O.W, the original G.L.O.W, there was something called Life in the G.L.O.W House, which was a segment or something like that. But seasons 1 and 2 had the G.L.O.W games, which you participated in numerous things. You were in the escalating contest, you were in the water wars, and the arm wrestling challenge. Give me your memories of doing those G.L.O.W games.
Well, the best part about the arm wrestling challenge, because Lisa Moretti and I and Nadine, Tina and Ashley, we were really good friends. The four of us were. And we were hanging out the night before the G.L.O.W games, and these were good guys. And I showed Nadine a arm wrestling technique of how to win. And she used it on me the next day. And she won. It was great. It was really funny because she used it immediately. What I learned, and I don't know much about arm wrestling, but I learned that in the first movement, if you do something with the wrist, immediately, it almost disables the person's strength right away. And I showed her how to do that, and she did it on me the next day and totally surprised me. So I love that. And then let's see, they were just fun. All that kind of stuff was fun. The G.L.O.W games were fun.
What was it like? Because you were in the restaurant that day when Emily and Deanna had that pizza eating contest. Because I remember, because you and Donna were basically saying, oh, they gave her dog food, McLean. They gave her dog food. Like, what was it like during that competition, between Emily and Deanna in that pizza eating contest?
All I remember is Dee was complaining that she couldn't eat all of hers because it had meat and Emily's had pineapple. And I remember thinking, I'd really like some of that pizza right now. Is this going to go on much longer? Because I'm getting really hungry, and she's complaining. I'll take that pizza right now and eat it for her. That's really all I was thinking was, really like some of that pizza right now. That's it.
Now, but when Dee threw the pizza at Emily, was that scripted or that was totally unscripted?
Oh, I'm sure it was unscripted, but they were okay with it. You know, that kind of stuff, they're okay with it because as long as you're not going to hurt somebody, it looks dramatic and all that kind of stuff. And actually, I believe, was it those two that roomed together? They might have actually had a room together. I'm not sure if the two of them did or if they had their own rooms or not. But they were, everybody, I don't know very many people that didn't get along with each other. I didn't. I got along with everybody anyway. I didn't have any problems with anybody or anybody like that. The only problem for me was that the good girls and the bad girls weren't supposed to be seen together. And Lisa and I, Tina Ferrari, were really good friends, and we were workout partners. So we were at the gym together every day. So I had to kind of go out incognito when I went out with her, so that nobody knew who I was, which was easy to do if I put a baseball cap on and no makeup, because Chainsaw always had so much makeup on, and you couldn't tell who Phyllis was. So as long as nobody knew who I was, it was okay to hang out with her. So, it was a really, I mean, the things you do, like the things you do to occupy yourself, because for me, there wasn't a lot to do in Las Vegas except for gamble. I was 26, but at 23 years old, I realized I was a compulsive gambler. I was playing craps in Las Vegas, and Donna was with me. I don't know why Donna was allowed at the table because she was only 18. And I stole her money after I ran out without thinking about it. I just looked over, took it, and bet it. And after that, I realized, ooh, I've got a problem. I didn't even notice that. And the intensity that I felt when I was gambling, I remember thinking, ooh, this could own me. I can't do this successfully without it taking over. I'm not doing this. And so I realized I've got some tendencies there that aren't good. And then we go to Vegas, and I get moved into the Riviera Hotel where it's nothing but a casino. I'm living in a casino, and I'm a compulsive gambler. And I couldn't gamble. I wouldn't let myself play at the table. So there's not a lot to do. And it's really, really hot outside. And I wasn't supposed to get a tan because I was heavy metal. So I'm supposed to look like I'm up all night. So we'd find stuff to do within the hotel. So Lisa and I would get a tennis racket, and down the hallways of the hotel, we'd be hitting the ball back and forth in the middle of the hallway of the hotel, and just sort of causing little mayhemy things, but not too bad. But it was an interesting time. It was pretty surreal, actually, because you rehearsed your stuff 5 days a week. You performed it on Saturday, and you had Sunday off, so you couldn't really leave, and you're kind of stuck in this a very strange kind of world. The other thing I did was they built an evening at the Improv Club in our hotel. So I used to go there every night and watch the comedians. Even though they stayed for a week, I saw the same acts every night. I really liked it. It was funny, too, because our the maitre d' of that club, his name was Steve Sharippa. Nicest guy in the world. Always gave me a front table and stuff. I didn't get charged for it. So sweet. He ended up being a major character on The Sopranos. And it was, he played, I think, Bobby. And nicest guy in the world. I was so happy for him. But it was a very interesting time. Very interesting time.
I see. And I do want to ask you, as far as Phyllis, though, that one of the housewives. There was a match. I don't remember which one it was, but it was the Housewives versus Little Fiji, and I think it was it Little Egypt or was it California Doll?
It was. I know one of them was Egypt and California Doll, I think it was. I'm not sure who, but is that the one where Egypt got her knee hurt?
No, that was when you fought Egypt as Spike and Chainsaw.
Oh, one for the Housewives. I don't remember the one with Little Egypt and oh, you know what though? I remember the interview. I remember the interview for it because I remember we were talking about the eye that she had blonde, like it was an eye on her shoulder. So it was a really neat eye tattoo kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah, I remember talking about that going, I know that's not her eye. It was like it was really stupid, but it was funny. But I don't remember the match that much.
I think maybe it was California Doll, and I think it was could be wrong here, but I think it was Amy the Farmer's Daughter, because I remember in the match you were actually riding with one of the crowd members saying, "Oh, that's real nice, real nice. How are you gonna explain to your wife, buddy?"
Yeah, exactly. She was laying on her. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
Remember
and then I remember saying she's got no chest. She got no chest. Look at that, no chest. So
remember
rude.
but Sharon, what was your memories of doing that match with working with Trudy and Jane?
Oh, they're just nice people. Always sweet. Always sweet. They were always nice. Never not nice. Jane, I mean, Trudy was sweet and quiet, and Jane was so lovely and sweet. And I always thought, gosh, if I could be built like anybody, I would love to be built like Jane. She was so pretty. Yeah, I thought she was like the prettiest thing.
I have to ask you, because the next match I'm going to ask is when you were as Chainsaw, and you fought. It was one of the most popular tag teams in Glow versus one of the most popular single wrestlers in Glow. I want you to talk about your memories with the match between the Heavy Metal Sisters versus Mountain Fiji, with Little Fiji in her corner.
That was the one that was really boring. That was the match that we were Donna and I could not think of stuff to write to do it. And Ellen DeGeneres was watching that show, and there were some comedians there that were watching that show, and there was a weatherman there was watching that show, and I was like, my gosh, could I come up with a more boring show? But they somehow managed to edit it together so it didn't look boring. I didn't even know what to do. I'm like, what can we do? We ended up cutting her hair, Little Fiji's hair in that show, as by her permission. But we didn't know how do I make this good? It was like so hard to make a good show out of whatever I think I was starting to run out of ideas because we had to write all our own matches and stuff. I think I was starting to run out of ideas by that time. It felt later on towards the end, I think. But I didn't think it was a good show from my writing perspective. Emily's always good. There's never a time she's not good, I just didn't think that the stuff that we came up with was that interesting. But they edited it to make it look okay, so people seem to like it.
But what was it like working with In Cham, who was Little Fiji?
She was very, very quiet. I don't have much. I don't think I've ever had an actual conversation with her. She was just like a sweet kid, She was just a sweet person, but very quiet. I mean, as far as I knew, she might have been different with other people, but she was very quiet.
And I gotta ask you this too, because you actually participated in a music video called Nasty and Mean for the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
He wrote that. Matilda the Hun wrote that song.
She did?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Because that was Jungle Woman Annette. Did she choreograph that?
Yep. She choreographed it. Yeah, she choreographed it, and Dee wrote it. And she also wrote "We Eat Raw Meat." I don't know if that ever ended up anywhere, but she wrote that one too.
Yeah, that actually appeared in the first pilot episode.
Did it?
Yep.
Yeah. She was a good singer. She was such a nice person too. Yeah, Dee was a really sweet person.
Well, what were your memories of doing that music video? I'm just curious. Take me behind the scenes.
Well, see, they're fine. I mean, that's like videos aren't as fun for me as the acting part was, the actual live stuff, because you're really just doing choreography. You're trying to meet your mark and trying to, it's just, it's almost like step here, step here, step here, step here. It's not, an organic thing that comes out of you so much as do this, do that. So when they put it all together, when they edited it all together, that's when it's the really fun part. That's the part that you see where it's all seamless and stuff. But in between that kind of stuff, you get a lot of, when you film something like that, just like in television, you have to do many different shots. They have master shots, which is where you see everything. There are close-up shots on this person, close-up shots on that person. So you're doing the same thing over and over and over again to get different angles on stuff and then edit it all together. But it's actually not, gosh, it's hot here today. It's actually not as fun as just regular live stuff. I'm not that big into dancing and stuff like that. That's not my thing. So some people love it, you know, and it was fun to watch. It came out well. Shooting something over and over again. I like doing that for television. I don't mind doing it for television because it's acting, but dancing and singing and stuff, and not my thing.
Now, did you have a favorite rap for both Chainsaw and Phyllis?
I don't remember many of my raps. I remember contusions, bruises, a gaping hole, a fight with Chainsaw really takes its toll. Come wrestle with me, I'm so insane. Really sensational, feels pain. And I remember, I remember one thing about the housewives. Was it my daughter Shirley over there? She's perfect for you. Very little facial hair. Aggravations taking 20 years off my life, and my husband Bernie left me for a younger wife. Those are the two I remember.
Cool. What about I gotta ask you this. After, like, what led to your departure in G.L.O.W?
I knew I wasn't staying because I wanted to go and act, and I didn't want to get hurt anymore. And so I had done a match, I think, in Mobile, Alabama, and another one in Miami, and went, yeah, I don't want to. I really need to be done with this, and I want to move on because I didn't want to get hurt anymore, and I wasn't ever looking to be a professional wrestler anyway. So that was why for me. They wanted me to stay, but I just didn't want to stay.
Okay, and and after, you know, after G.L.O.W, what was next for Sharon and Johnston? What was next for you?
After G.L.O.W, I came back to California, and then I moved to New York and studied acting in New York for 3 years, and then moved back to California, and then got a job at Universal Studios working in the Wild West Stunt Show. So I worked doing that for 10 years. So those crowds were you'd work about maybe 2,000 people per show, and do about 4 to 5 shows a day. And so I did that for about 10 years while I was doing commercials and television.
Oh, okay. And now you mentioned television work. Now you took part in many mainstream shows. You had character parts in mainstream shows.
Tiny things though, just tiny.
Can I name some of the stuff that you have done? Like, you were in Malcolm in the Middle. You were on The Price is Right. You were on Monk. And weren't you also on Gilmore Girls?
Yeah.
I want you to talk about some of those the names I just mentioned. Like, what was it like working on Malcolm in the Middle? Because Malcolm in the Middle is one of my favorite shows on Fox.
Malcolm in the Middle was really fun, and Bryan Cranston was really nice. I got to do a scene with Bryan Cranston, and who ended up doing Breaking Bad. And he was really nice, and everybody was. I've only had one bad experience working in television, and that was working on The Practice. I was working with Dylan McDermott and Larry Flynn Boyle. Oh, God, they're horrible. Oh, they were so awful and mean. They were so crappy and horrible and mean. They're awful people, so mean and nasty. And the director on that was, woo! So, but otherwise, I've never had a problem with anybody. I've always loved what I did, and I always loved, working. And it was always my favorite thing was to be on the sound stage. I just loved being on sound stages. So it was just awesome to do the work that you want to do because I liked working. And I had it's a fun little part and stuff. But all my stuff was really small. But and then I did plays and stuff and got nominated for some decent awards and won a few decent awards in comedy and stuff like that. So it was fun.
Cool. And now I do want to ask you though, and this will be the last question I ask in regards to G.L.O.W, though, but in 2010, there was a reunion for G.L.O.W for the first time in years. I want you to take me through that day. I want to know what was like the experience that day, like how like lets you come in there, like fill me out.
Well, it was different for me because I had been in the hospital for a year, and I was dying for that year. And it was like the third time I was dying from illness. So I had just had my fourth major surgery before that reunion. 2 weeks, that reunion was on January 30th, 2010. January 6th of 2010, I had all of my intestines removed except for 10%. And I'd been paralyzed from a spinal cord injury 6 months earlier. So I was still coming back and learning how to walk again. So going into that place and I'd also lost like 100 pounds in 6 months because I couldn't eat because my intestines were being strangled. That's why they had to get taken out. So it was a really, really surreal time. They wanted to do the documentary footage and that reunion in the beginning of January, and I said, I'm surprised I only gave this time. I'm like, you have to give me at least 2 weeks because once they do the surgery, then you have to be in the hospital. So I was in the hospital till like the 14th of January. 2 weeks later, I'm walking in and meeting all these girls up for the first time. So it was really interesting. It was different. But it was so nice to see all of them. Oh gosh, seeing all of those girls, they're just the nicest group of women and so sweet, so loving, and it was really cool. It was cool to see Emily, and it was cool to see Lisa, Angelina, Jane, Dee, all of them. You know, Lori became an attorney, the student spirit, you know, Americana, Cindy. Oh, it's just great. Awesome.
Very cool. And now, before we conclude the interview, there's 2 things I was gonna like ask for a request because I'm such a huge diehard fan of yours. One, could you do the Phyllis and Chainsaw, like, you know, any favorite line from Phyllis and Chainsaw in their voice?
Well, the thing with Phyllis was fun because everything Donna and I did with Phyllis and Arlene, the housewives, was improv. There wasn't anything that wasn't improv with them. Nothing was planned. The only thing we had a plan of, the only places we started with was usually I would talk about Arlene's weight and she would talk about how controlling I am. And then we would just start talking. So I would say something like, if it was talking to you, I'd go, oh, that's nice, Petey. You think maybe you should clean up your room? You think maybe you're old enough to do that? I mean, I can't come in there. It's like, I've got enough on my plate and I don't have to worry about, and the hair, what's with the hair? Is it not hot enough to at least shave that head of yours? Stuff like that. He's going like that. You start complaining about anything. You could just go on and on and on, and it's just endless complaining. That's all it is. They're never happy. They are never happy. And they will just bitch about anything. Oh, sure, even if it's perfect, it's perfect. Now, wait 5 minutes. You can't, nothing is going to be good enough for, oh, you think that's nice? Give it time. It's like everything is negative. Everything. So it's just fun to do. And with Donna, she was so much fun to work off of because it was just easy. She'd give you something and she'd come back and she'd get all defensive about her weight. I'm like, I just tell you this because I love you. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't tell you you had the behind of the size of a large valise. I would say, look how skinny that behind is, which it's not. And you just do stuff like that. Just go on anything. It's easy to do. You're just bitching and complaining. You're saying anything that comes to your head, but in that voice. His tiny, naggy voice.
Now, what about Chainsaw?
Well, Chainsaw was funny because I don't know if I think you know this, that the original names for Chainsaw and Spike were Spike and Steel. And Matt didn't like that he'd come up with the names. He didn't like that. And Donna's favorite movie was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So she said, what about Chainsaw? I was standing there with a bunch of people, and somebody goes, yeah. And somebody else goes, and she can carry a real chainsaw. And I'm like, what? And somebody else goes, and it can have a saw on it. It could go. And I'm like, and somebody said, and she could cut things. I'm like, what are you talking about? Seriously? And then Matt says, yes, gives me money and goes, go to Sears and buy a chainsaw. And I had to come back and put it together. I don't know how to do that. I don't do stuff like that. I'm a Jew. We pay people to do shit like stuff like that. But that's just, I was like, seriously, this is what I'm doing? I'm supposed to be an attorney. I'm a heavy metal crazy person with a chainsaw. Oh, this will be fun. How am I going to get this to work? You find yourself in the strangest places in life.
How did you do, like, what made you do the chainsaw voice? What was the origin of that voice for chainsaw?
There wasn't one. It was just, everything was, so, I'm surprised I could do them because you kind of have to, it almost gives your throat a little bit of, it feels like scar tissue to where it becomes easier and easier, so it protects it. But everything you say is like this. Oh, you know what else I could do? I can do Wicked Witch of the West. Ready? Is it the Wicked Witch of the West or the Wicked Witch of the East or the North? I never remember. It was South. Anyway,
I think it was,
the Wicked Witch.
yeah.
Which one?
I think it was the Wicked Witch of the West. No, not West. East.
See, nobody knows. Okay, so it goes like this. Ready? I'll get you, my pretty, and your little doll, too.
Margaret Hamilton would be proud of you.
I know. I would have loved to have met her.
Well, when I think of the heavy metal sisters, I think of the three villainous names that I'm a big fan of both of them. Peter Lorre, because that creepy that voice. Oh, what I'm gonna do to you, that type of thing. And you know what I think though, the funniness and the over the top, like not over the top, but the boisterous attitude of anything Tim Curry does.
I love Tim Curry.
Me too.
I love. In fact, when Rocky Horror Picture came out, I was, Rocky Horror Picture Show came out. I think I was 16. I think it was about 76. I was hugely into that, and I love Tim Curry. Love Tim Curry.
Me too. Like, and he put.
Yeah, it's just, we used to go to the midnight shows. They'd have midnight showings of that, and people would dress up. I didn't, but people would dress up so cool, like different characters. And when they do the Time Warp song, everybody would get up in the audience and start doing it. It was so fun.
Awesome. Before we conclude, Sharon, because this is an open forum, you can endorse anything, you can talk about anything you want, because it's an open forum. Now is the time you can talk about anything you want right now.
Well, all I would say is everybody in the world is going through a really hard time right now with the pandemic. Try to remember that everybody's having a hard time. Be patient. Be a little kinder than you would be. Be a little more understanding, a little nicer, because you don't know the load that somebody else is carrying.
Beautiful sentiments. And before we conclude, I just want to say that, just remember this, Sharon, that, Chainsaw and Phyllis also have G.L.O.W nephews. And you know what? Chainsaw's bastard nephew is named Taser, and that's Taser spelled with a Z. He wanted me to tell you that he always got his auntie's back.
I'm so glad.
And also, I got a message from Phyllis's nephew, Harold Iggystein, and he wanted to say that he's got his auntie's back. But before telling me all that. But you know what, Sharon, it's been great talking to you. It was an absolute pleasure, and I just, you're one of my, you've been one of my closest friends for 7 years now.
Yes, we have, P. We've been doing it.
Many more, Sharon.
Sure.
Take care, my friend.
Mwah.